to Abby, the person you haven't even started to hang yet? See, this is what you get when you doctor evil your victims. Come back and put you in a stranglehold with thick brick thighs. Since the gunshots we heard were part of the cutscene, it's mandatory for hordes of stalkers to start appearing throughout the woods to chase the new trio of Abby, Yara, and the rebellious airbender, Lev. They escaped the forest only to be attacked by the lurking Big Bertha. She somehow knew the exact location of where Abby and her associates were, and even got to have the jump on them. And Abby somehow defeats this giant woman with a sledgehammer. So how can Abby fight Shamblers effectively and not be affected by their hurled spore bombs? Since she isn't wearing a mask and isn't immune like Ellie, wouldn't she be dead or infected by the cordyceps just by breathing it in once? Abby, after helping them, leaves Yara and Lev in the trailer to continue pursuing Owen, going through a freighter area and exploring a beached ship. Good thing that risky jump she made in the middle across the crumbling bridge had water to break her fall. Might have been easier to just have walked through the wilderness directly right of the bridge and taken a little bit more time, especially considering Abby has a huge fear of heights and falling. You would think people like Abby and Ellie, born and raised around crumbling buildings and many structures, would know better than to go full force at something that will break at the slightest push. Abby finds Owen in the boat that they had flashbacks in, as he confides in her how tired he is of killing people. He also has an apparent lead on Firefly activity in Santa Barbara, California, because this guy gets results faster than Google. But at least this time it makes a little more sense, as he or someone else he knows probably overheard the Firefly radio chatter or frequency at some point. But let's sideline that for a sex scene so we can get fucked so hard we are knocked right into a flashback. Now this isn't a sin, moving a sin, but I had to say it anyway. Is this flashback during sex symbolism of Abby's sexual encounter with Owen? Coming in from the back door down a long open hallway to get to the front door to find two dangling dead danglers deep inside. I was almost expecting a giant penis boss fight to break through the front door. Okay, I just wanted to make a joke here and say, so it's on or off, just a joke. Don't be mad. In all seriousness though, Abby's nightmare over Yara and Lev has her going back to check on them both. Coincidentally, right after Owen says he refused to kill a Scar, and that's what Abby just did. Coincidental, because the main characters of movies, books, and games never get accidentally shot when going around corners to panic to gun holders. Just NPCs of the non-white supporting characters like Jesse and Manny. Very progressive, Naughty Dog. Doors are bad. So Abby carries her back to the aquarium. Again, they get all this way with apparently no interference from the infected Scars. It's decided that Yara needs to have her arm amputated, and they aren't equipped enough to perform the procedure. So Lev and Abby decide to go to the hospital in town, and Owen asks why. Although I'm sure it was his altruism that slightly inspired Abby to save a Scar anyways. Okay, now comes one of my biggest issues with the game. Abby and Lev are having to hurry up and get the medical equipment for Yara so she won't suffer from gangrene. So instead of a reasonable route around or over the river, they decide, hey, you see that over 20-story huge freaking skyscraper filled with enemy Scars? Let's go all the way up it and then cross a perilous construction crane to another skyscraper that we will go all the way down, and this time it'll be filled with infected of every type. Just to get across the river, the hospital isn't a part of these skyscrapers at all. You are taking these long, dangerous routes where you can be slaughtered, fall to your death, have parts of this building collapse on you, or get infected at any point by spores or the infected themselves. I understand it's for interesting gameplay, but find a different route, you two. Climbing and descending 20 stories up and then 20 stories down seems very counterproductive when you have such a time-sensitive mission to save someone's life. Plus 3 sins. On that note, you would think the Scars would have made a bridge of some sort on ground level to make it across these raging rapids. But they seem to be more focused on making pointless wooden walls and restrooms and parkour challenges on the rooftop crane. I see this long-ass ladder, and I say there will be a surprise attack during live stream, and even slowly counted down because of how predictable it is. 3, 2, 1... Boom! Called it. Again, why did the Seraphites make these weird bridge ridges on the crane so small and unintuitively, leading to you literally walking on a small support beam, struggling to keep your balance. With how high up they are, those strong Seattle winds could easily force someone to fall off, especially the narrow bridge at the end of it. They have the know-how to keep a freight elevator and its generator working perfectly fine, but then they do stuff like this when it comes to going across a crane. I'm reporting them for OSHA violations. Wow! Just wow! Abby does fall off the crane, but she falls through a glass ceiling and luckily lands in a luxury pool that is somehow still filled with water. Holy hell! That isn't even luck. That's just plot armor incarnate. As Abby and Lev are starting to go down the second skyscraper, Abby notices a room filled with spores and tells Lev to put on her mask. But not everyone has a mask readily available. So she tells Lev to sit back as she looks for one to find for her. You really think you're going to get lucky enough to find a working gas mask in this building that hasn't been touched in 24 years where infected have been roaming around with spores all up in the air? And wouldn't you know it, she finds one almost immediately. Oh, wow, nice curveball, Naughty Dog. I thought she was about to find a mask that easily. -1 cent. Oh wait, never mind. Abby finds another gas mask, but this time intact. I would say convenient, but would a gas mask that's been on a dead, decaying corpse, lingering in a spore-ridden environment for over 2 decades work at that point? Wouldn't its filters have long since lost their effectiveness by now? And by that time, the spores would have gotten inside the mask, making it pointless to even put on? Frostbite against the bloater and its numerous stalkers in this series of hallways was equal parts nail-biting, aggravating, and entertaining. -1 cent, Abby and Lev get down the second building, and after a short swim, they are at the hospital, which half of it is an established WLF base, or in the very least, they are there to get medical supplies before the war effort. But I would think Abby would have heard something about this before she had left. You just went through 2 towers and almost died in each one, and the crane. Isn't she regularly working as recon in the city? Wouldn't she have known better? Wouldn't she know not to go through those freaking towers? I do like the fact that Abby goes through this camp and we see all these nice, named people and dogs that we killed as Ellie. It gives a bit more depth to the enemies you face, and for once, the hordes of NPCs you gun down actually feel a bit more real and like actual people. It didn't make me feel guilty, but it still felt genuine, and that they tried with NPCs. So, -1 cent. When people recognize Abby in this hospital outpost, they say that Isaac has ordered for Abby to be forcefully returned in handcuffs because of how she went AWOL right before their scheduled war effort with the Scars. You'd think Abby would have kept that in mind, but thankfully, BFF Nora is here to set her free and casually lead her to the other half of the hospital without being spotted. Instead of stealthily stealing medical supplies or having Nora just lie and snag some for her, Abby goes to the infected side of the hospital to find some. You're going to the ground zero of the epidemic in Seattle to find supplies that are most likely covered in cordyceps carrying spores against infected that have been festering from the very beginning. You know the longer an infected has lived, that the more dangerous it can become. But you're still going to make this risk instead of just having Nora get you some supplies in the back room. In the infected side of the hospital, the fungus is overgrowing everything. Generators, electrical grid, powered doors still work to a great degree despite the 2-decade-old fungus growing everywhere. After failing to find any medical supplies in multiple rooms of this hospital, Abby goes to the parking garage and finds a wrecked ambulance with a pristine box of surgical equipment that has been untouched by this fungus. Convenient! Now for the most gruesome, dangerous infected yet, the Rat King. He shows up out of nowhere since it's the end of the level, but despite its plot-convenient timing, I thoroughly loved this boss fight, from its intensity to its multi-part structure, to even having an advanced stalker chip off of it to add to the challenge. As my editor Wisefish and I discussed, we wish the game had more scenarios like this to keep it more entertaining. So I'm going to take 2 cents off. Abby finally finds her way through this random garage entrance, and right as she jumps down, Lev was right there waiting for her, apparently knowing that's exactly where she would return. Lucky for Abby, since Lev was never discovered by Infected or the WLF, and shows her that the WLF soldiers are nearby and her. Lucky again, Abby and Lev find a boat right nearby, and it gets them perfectly to the aquarium. You'd think somebody with the WLF would have kept an eye on that boat since, Abby disappeared. Everyone gets a good night's sleep, and after 20 minutes of dialogue, I'm not kidding, that's how it is, Lev deserts everyone, escapes in the boat, and heads to the island base of the Seraphites to convince her and Yara's mother to change her ways. Wasn't this cult trying to kill you and literally crushed your sister's arm to the point it had to be amputated? What makes you think your mom will have a change of heart? I understand you're a kid, and it's a cult, you want things to be better, but this doesn't feel genuine and feels forced in order to have Abby somehow involved in the upcoming war that she was inactively avoiding just so she could find Owen, and then to help Yara and Lev. On the way to go save Lev, Abby loses track of Yara, but then runs into Manny, who is being pinned down by a sniper in the distance. What a perfect timing for her to show up to go against the sniper, and to also remind us that Manny was a character sometime in the game. This semi-boss fight of dodging Tommy's sniper skills was another banger moment. Calling back to the flashback of Tommy teaching Ellie how to snipe, Tommy shoots nearby objects so they make noise to attract the infected towards her, making a thrilling and awesome fight avoiding runners, clickers, and sniper fire. -1 sin. Although I do gotta say, how much ammo does Tommy have? You gotta love infinite ammo NPCs. After avoiding all the sniper fire, Abby and Manny corner Tommy, but don't keep an eye on their six while pushing the store open. For once, not thinking critically costs a character their life, but you would think they would know better than to keep an eye on their back if they were sneaking up on them. Abby confronts Tommy, and when it seems like Tommy has the advantage on her, the one-armed Yara, who has not been around for quite a while, comes out of nowhere to blindside him. Convenient for Abby. Tommy falls into the ocean below, but Abby doesn't need to have a weapon drawn to potentially ensure he dies if he emerges back up from the water, especially after he just killed Manny right in front of you. His blood is on your face. What happened to that raging burn on the revenge you have already? But nah, she forgets about Manny right on the spot, and just stares at the water and assumes, yeah, the guy with the sniper probably drowned, whatever. They procure a boat at this dock, and land on the island without any interference or defense at the shore by the Scars. After either sneaking or plowing your way through the Seraphite camps on the island, which I did both, you find Yara and Lev's mom, dead in a building, with Lev reeling from his actions in the corner. Good thing no Seraphites showed up before we did, or Lev would have been hanging out. As they are heading back home, a WLF finds Yara and pops her in the stomach. How did he know at first glance that Yara was a Scar? Was it their clothing, since the cult kinda dresses in trench coats and rags? Because it would be hard to see their Joker smile scars. Maybe while they were at the aquarium, they should have given them a change of clothing to not automatically be assumed to be a Seraphite. There were plenty of merch shirts in the aquarium for them to wear, but I can see why they would shoot on sight because they are in enemy territory. But still, you'd think they would have taken the extra precautions. Since it's the climax of Abby's story, Isaac appears seeing Abby protecting a Scar, much like the stories of Owen, who did the same thing. That's some good narrative timing for Isaac to see, especially when Isaac starts demanding for Abby to get out of the way so he can get rid of the Scar, and starts counting down to 3. Right as he gets past 2, Yara, who we thought was dead on the ground, pulls out a gun and kills Isaac on the spot. God love convenient timing. The rest of the WLF soldiers right nearby respond accordingly and fill Yara full of bullets, killing her instantly. After our long journey to be able to amputate her arm to save her life, I can admit I was annoyed we went through all of that for nothing. But again, that's the harsh reality of reality. I'm just surprised Abby and Lev were able to get away in front of 4 armed people into blockadable shelter. How convenient. Abby, the person who went on a revenge quest to kill one man for killing her father and tons of fireflies, is now pulling a Joel and killing tons of her former WLF comrades to save Lev's life, this one child's life. It's sort of strange how quick she has a change of heart when it comes to children. She just Heck, killing dozens of her old friends in the process. I can see what they were trying to do here in the narrative experience by having Abby have a similar situation to Joel and kind of have his perspective on why he's